Farage.
Thank you, Donald. Well, didn't he do well? Because you see, Mike Pompeo, the CIA boss and the nominee to be Trump's next Secretary of State, it's been confirmed today, has been to North Korea, has met Kim Jong-un, and there is going to be a summit probably within the space of a few weeks. It is an astonishing achievement by the president, and I have to say, I think he's becoming a real international statesman, but I'm keen to get your view. But before that, within the last hour, we've heard the government have suffered a heavy defeat in the House of Lords over the policy of leaving the European Union's customs union. Peers have voted in favour of an amendment to the EU withdrawal bill by 348 to 225, a majority of 123. Members of the House of Lords think we should stay part of the customs union or a customs union. This, of course, not something that Brexit voters wanted, not something Theresa May is asking for. It's, of course, been praised by Sir Keir Starmer, Labour Shadow Brexit Secretary. More analysis on that at the bottom of the hour with Theo Usherwood, LBC's political editor. All I can say is the House of Lords is stuffed full of former MPs, party donors, spivs, former European commissioners. They're a London-based clique. Most of them are mates of Blair's and Cameron's. The whole place is a complete and utter disgrace, and the sooner we close the whole shooting match down and replace it with an elected Senate, the better. But more of that at 7:30 when Theo Usherwood comes on to tell us what the implications are. But first, so Mike Pompeo. Who is Mike Pompeo? Well, he's a 54-year-old former US Army officer, tank commander. He hadn't really been involved in politics, but he got stuck into the Tea Party movement a few years ago, which was a bit like the UKIP wing of the Republican Party, looking for the Republican Party to be harder edged in terms of its policies. I've met him. I've spent a bit of time with him. I liked him. I mean, he's a real trumper, and he's going to become, because Rex Tillerson is now gone, quite a lot of changes of staff in Donald's team over the course of the first year or so. But he's now due to become the Secretary of State, having been the CIA boss. But we've got confirmation that he's been to North Korea, he's met Kim Jong-un. As Trump tweeted today, Mike Pompeo met Kim Jong-un in North Korea last week. Meeting went very smoothly and a good working relationship was formed. Details of the summit are being worked out now. Denuclearization will be a great thing for the world, but also for North Korea. And today, President Trump is down at Mar-a-Lago. He's there with the Prime Minister of Japan, Shinzo Abe. I will bet anybody, I don't know this, but they'll be playing golf. There's no question about that. But Trump had this to say earlier on today.
North Korea is coming along. South Korea is meeting and has plans to meet with North Korea to see if they can end the war, and they have my blessing on that. Japan and ourselves are locked, and we are very unified on the subject of North Korea. We will probably be, depending on the various meetings and conversations, we'll be having meetings with Kim Jong-un very soon. That'll be taking place probably in early June or a little before that.
So we're a matter of weeks away before this meeting. Where will it take place? Well, Bangkok has been talked about, Geneva, Helsinki, Singapore, Stockholm, Oslo, Prague, where actually Kim Jong-un's uncle happens to be the ambassador, Warsaw, and Ulaanbaatar. Why Mongolia, you say? Well, some say that North Korea actually don't have a plane capable of going all that far. Perhaps he could travel on one of his rockets. I don't know. We'll see where they choose. My favourite would be Oslo. I think they'll choose somewhere that genuinely is a neutral country. Could be Geneva. I don't think a European Union member state is likely to get it. Let's see. Let's find out. But hey, either way, this is remarkable. This is astonishing. This war of words, as it started with Trump saying Rocket Man and Kim Jong-un calling him old and him calling Kim fat. But actually, what Trump has done, rather than ignoring this potential growing threat from North Korea, he's confronted it head on, and he's persuaded China to actually put some very tough sanctions in place. I think the reality is that North Korea is being starved into these talks. That is my view. But it doesn't really matter. Trump has made things happen. Now, look, you all know that I am a President Trump supporter, and I'm going to put it to you that Trump, through this, is now becoming an international statesman. So tell me, do you agree with me? Is Trump, has he now exceeded all expectations? Is he now a giant on the world stage, a man who we can associate with peace? If he is, call me on 0345 6060 973. If you think, Nigel, you're talking absolute hogwash, this is all just bravado and show, then text to 84850. Or maybe you're very sceptical and you think, actually, Kim Jong-un's father talked about denuclearization. Nothing ever happened. It's all an nonsense. Then tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC, and of course you can watch us on Facebook. I'm here in the European Parliament in Strasbourg. I'll have some things to say later, more things to say about President Macron yesterday and why he turned up 20 minutes late to give his speech. You won't believe what I'm going to tell you on that. And of course you can comment on Facebook too. So is Trump now an international statesman? And I have to say, whether you like Trump or not, the fact that North Korea are coming to the negotiating table is phenomenal. Churchill said, George Orr is better than war, and I really do believe this is fantastic progress. Lisa on Twitter says, I have every confidence that Trump will achieve significant things, as unlike Trudeau and others, he is not sidelined with social issues like gender, feminism, regime change, or instigating colour revolutions. It's a very interesting point, Lisa, but to some extent, the left across the Western world are very, very obsessed with gender issues, race issues, and that's not to say that they're not important, but you're right, they tend to get a little bit bogged down in these things. Rosemary on Facebook says, not sure about international statesman. Well, okay, I was teasing you a little bit, but he seems to be doing a good job, better than people thought he would do. I don't agree with all he does and says, but the man wants to get the job done and loves his country. Wish we could say the same about our politicians in the UK. Hear, hear. Rosemary. Colin is on the line from Finchley. Good evening, Colin.
Good evening to you, Nigel. Nigel, I think you have got more front than Selfridges. How you can get on the air and say he is a statesman. The
Absolutely.
man has got no finesse at all, sir. Honestly, some of the things that he has come out with and said in the past, I don't know how you got the bottle to say it.
Well, Colin, perhaps he's redefined what a statesman is.
I can't get my head around how the Americans have stood the free card trick and got him. I know he's a businessman, and we know he's good in what he's and he's made plenty of money. No one can take that away from him. But when it comes to being a president of the United States, this guy will go down in history. This one will, at the end.
Well, Colin, let me put this to you, right? His first overseas trip was to Saudi Arabia. He spoke to them in terms that nobody has ever spoken to them in their own country. He told them they had to reform, they had to deal with extremism, and if they did those things, America would start doing business with them. And hey, do you know what? There is now fundamental change taking place within Saudi Arabia. When it comes to North Korea and that growing potential nuclear threat, Obama simply ignored the problem for 8 years, brushed it under the carpet, Colin, pretended it wasn't there. Guess what? Donald talks tough, and all right, okay, rocket man. This is not a term you would normally associate with an international statesman, but Colin, he's got them to the negotiating table. Would you not agree that's an amazing achievement?
No, Nigel, he hasn't got them to the table. China have got them to the table.
Well, who persuaded China? Who persuaded China to put tough sanctions on them?
Well, he spoke to them. The reason that China could see that if there was a nuclear war, if it did go ahead, because I think he's capable of sending one over, there's no ifs or buts about that, they don't want their people all mullered, do they? And that's what's going to happen.
So, Colin, as far as you're concerned, Trump's a wrong 'un, is he?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right, fine. I've got your point of view, Colin. Thank you. Well, Colin there disagreeing with me absolutely fundamentally and saying I've got more front than Selfridges. Michael is calling from Mansfield. Good evening, Michael.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry, Nigel, but you're going to get the same as you heard from Nigel, from Colin there, really. I think you're a propaganda merchant, frankly. You've got obviously very close links with Trump. You're not an honest broker on this. Trump has no models. If you look at the Mueller investigation going on, if you look at the links with Cambridge Analytica, obviously you've got links as well.
Oh, Michael, please don't give me that conspiratorial nonsense, please. The Cambridge Analytica stuff is absolute nonsense.
Oh, really? Really?
Yeah, really.
Okay, well,
really.
the evidence points the other way, Nigel. We won't
I tell you what the evidence points to, Michael. It points to the fact that Cambridge Analytica played no role in the UK referendum whatsoever.
Oh, I see. Right. So Adam Banks'
zero.
funding has got nothing to do with it as well.
Zero.
So where did he get 88 million? That just kind of popped out of his pocket, even though he couldn't afford it. There was no misapproaching of data going on either. All.
Can I just repeat the point, Michael?
Yeah.
That Cambridge Analytica played no role in the UK referendum whatsoever.
Well, we will see where the investigation follows, Nigel. I think that's absolute rubbish, if I'm honest.
Well, Michael, you don't know. I was there. I've got a reasonable idea, and I promise you they played no role. But anyway, we're being sidetracked on that. Look, Michael, you may not like Donald Trump. You may think, that I'm a propaganda merchant. But look, I did criticise him earlier in the week over these missile strikes in Syria. But would you, Michael, not agree, maybe reluctantly, that getting a meeting with Kim Jong-un within the space of the next few weeks is a great achievement?
As your former caller said, it's not Trump's achievement. I mean, you could say China thought, hang on, we've got two nutters on the spot now, so we've got to do something. Trump, the man has no values. He has no bottom line. I mean, you've had the premier of Japan visiting the last few days. It was like a sponsorship deal or a promo video for Mar-a-Lago. This guy's making money from his job. That's illegal under the American Constitution.
He doesn't need to make money, Michael. He's worth $7 billion anyway.
Well, yes, but how many times has he been bankrupt? It's a few times, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, do you know what, Michael? A lot of people who reach the real top in business have a pretty rocky route on the way there, and Trump has certainly had that. Anyway, I tell you what, Michael, I've got one last try with you, okay? Do you think it's a good thing that Donald Trump is going to meet the leader of North Korea?
Yeah, that's potentially a good thing, but
good.
Please don't credit him with that achievement, because that's, again, being disingenuous.
Michael, I thank you. No, Michael, I've got to move on. I thank you for the call. I have a feeling that if Trump cured cancer, people still would not be able to give him credit for it. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show exclusively on LBC. The time now is 7:16. At last the sun is shining. I thought it would never happen. Do you know, at the weekend, only 12 of the 40 horses actually completed the Grand National course. So heavy was the ground. So the sun is very welcome. And added to all of that, we've got this amazing news that Mike Pompeo, CIA boss and future Secretary of State, has been to meet the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. And within weeks, Donald Trump is going to meet the boss of North Korea. I think it's one of the most exciting developments in international diplomacy that we've seen for many years. I believe Trump is becoming an international statesman, but so far, the callers I've had, I've been called a propagandist for Trump. I've been told I've got more front than Selfridges for saying that he's a statesman. Well, to those who disagree with me, I'm going to really upset you now. Because a few years ago, President Obama, he was not even 10 months into the presidency. And guess what? He got the Nobel Peace Prize for what he might do. Yeah, what he might do. None of it ever happened. And, you know, years later, it was said that actually the Nobel Committee said themselves they'd made a mistake in giving this award to President Obama. Well, I'm going to suggest now that actually what needs to happen is that President Trump needs to be awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for managing to get, talks going with North Korea, something that no US president has ever managed to do. I think it's fantastic. And I've been looking today at some of the rules, and as an MEP, I'm able to nominate people for the Nobel Peace Prize, and I'll be trying to get a petition of MEPs who support this idea. So for those of you who disagree with me, no doubt you'll be absolutely furious. But I'm not alone, because Arthur in Brighton, he texts and says that Donald is becoming one of my heroes. He will become one of the best ever American presidents. Chris says, I think his brand of statesmanship is unique and not to everyone's liking, but he stood up to the bully. He's getting results. Nick says, I like Trump, I like Johnson, I like the mob, I like you, Nigel. You're all unorthodox, unconventional, you break the mold and get things done. And Leonard on Facebook says, the best president in my life. He gets the job done, says what he means and means what he says. So it's not all one-way traffic. Some of you agree with me that Trump is achieving remarkable things. And I know the word statesman doesn't normally apply to Donald, given his style, but hey, things are happening. Alex in Worcester, tell me I'm wrong.
To be honest, Nigel, I wasn't the biggest fan of Donald Trump whatsoever. But after hearing this news today, I think I look back at history and he reminds me of Ronald Reagan when he used to say, you negotiate from a position of strength. And I think that they're actually now taking him very seriously on the international stage, far more so than Obama, which you mentioned previously, and even if it would have been heaven for the likes of Clinton. But on a bigger picture, I think today will, with most people, resonate as in the British public, ones like I, who were not his fans. But if he can pull this off, I think he would have turned it around. That's a big thing to do in the British public, I think.
I think your comparison, Alex, with Reagan is very interesting, because Ronnie was considered to be lazy, stupid, thick, useless. And then, when he spoke on foreign affairs, hawkish and dangerous. And some might remember the off-mic comment that he made, let's bomb Russia. It was supposed to be a joke, but it was taken to be the way Reagan felt about it. And yet, through strength, through that Reykjavik summit, actually, Reagan won the Cold War against the Soviet Union, and it led directly to the Berlin Wall coming down and to tens of millions of people getting democracy, freedom and peace. Remember Reagan in Berlin, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. Now, we're nowhere near, Alex, that yet with Trump and North Korea, but I think you're right. I think a lot of people who instinctively didn't think Trump was the right guy to be president, didn't like his style, found him too abrasive, found him, well, frankly, to be too much like a New Yorker. I mean, you go to New York, it's full of people like that. At least that's my experience. But Alex, it's a great start, isn't it?
Most certainly so. And I think, as I said, people are looking at him now and saying, this is the man that we can do business with. And I think that's the key difference. And that's what Margaret Thatcher said when she met Gorbachev. And I think that's what, the likes of Kim Jong-un are saying now when they meet him. It's the calibre of the person. And he's the kind of bloke that if he says something, I think actually he might just do it. And I hope this signals on a more bigger prospect to the UK citizens that if you're in business, come forward into politics. So we've got something good to vote for once.
Well, can you imagine that, Alex? Can you imagine if we had politicians running the country who'd actually had jobs in the real world before going into politics, rather than coming straight in from Oxford with a degree in PPE? Wouldn't that be great?
It would be amazing. Fingers crossed, Nigel.
Absolutely. Alex, thank you very much indeed. Mary says, you can't sell Trump to Britain the way you did Brexit. No point trying. Back to the drawing board, Nigel. I tell you what, Mary, I think you're right, actually. It is difficult to sell Donald Trump to Britain. I accept that. I do keep trying. And by the way, I do criticise him when I disagree with what he does. I think, Mary, Trump will sell himself to Britain. And if he pulls off some kind of denuclearization deal with North Korea, then he'll be a hero, not just for me, but for tens of millions of people all over the world. Marion disagrees. Trump is a con man, and I'm beginning to think you are too. Thank you, Marion. That's very, very sweet of you. Let's go to George in Hammersmith. Hi, George.
Hi, Nigel. I think what you just said about Obama really sort of sums up why there's so much hype around Trump and sort of why it's so too soon for that, really, is Obama did get awarded the Nobel Peace Prize too early before any achievements happened. And I think it's the same with Trump, is he hasn't actually achieved anything yet in North Korea. I'd say maybe made a faux pas with sending Mike Pompeo, being such a high-profile person in the administration. And I just don't think you can really sell it as a Trump victory yet. It's just not even that.
Well, the point I was making, George, was the fact that a meeting is going to happen within the next few weeks means that Trump has achieved far more than Obama ever did, and yet Obama was seen to be nice and good and lovely and cuddly and wonderful, and Obama got the Peace Prize for what he might do in the future, you know, and I mean that frankly was ridiculous. I tell you what, once this meeting's over, I will try and collect some signatures, and let's see how the Nobel Peace Prize Committee respond to a Trump nomination compared to an Obama one.
But even so, regardless of the Nobel Peace Committee, I think with Trump he's, as you said, with Reagan, it's come from a position of strength, but Trump's done the opposite. Is the bargaining chip he has is you're the American president, you're the most powerful person in the world. So the invitation to meet you needs to come with preconditions. He hasn't done that. He's come from a position of meeting without any guarantees in North Korea.
Yes.
He's backed himself in a corner from that position. So from that,
George, all I was doing
is actually coming from actual naivety.
All I was doing, George, was drawing, really, an illustration of people's prejudice. Because there are so many people that see, oh, someone's good, someone's bad. Obama's good, Trump's bad. Actually, Obama's achievements in foreign policy already massively outweigh anything Obama ever did. But I get the point, George. I really, really do. John says, Obama getting a Nobel Peace Prize. What a joke. I hope they put him at the back of the queue when he received it. I like that. Steve says, an international statesman, ? What a joke, Nigel. The man has no diplomacy, no class. It'll be his way and nothing else. He's treating his presidency like a game show. Steve, a lot of people in America have said that to me. But you know what? Long as it works, who cares? What does Richard in Godstone think? Richard, good evening.
Hello, Nigel. I have to say that it's pretty easy, or it was pretty easy to despise Trump from his TV persona. You know, I think a lot of people looked at The Apprentice and thought, what a horrible guy. But I think actually what he has done is he has torn up the rule book on modern politics. And he's come in with a very business-like attitude, and come in and within the space of 12 months has achieved a huge amount because he is of the opinion that politics is business and business is politics, and ultimately you've got to get things done, and you have to do that by threatening people, whether they like it or not. You threaten them with things that they don't like, or you offer them things they do like, and that is why he's been such a divisive figure, because people like Obama and Cameron and all these politicians that come off straight off a factory line, they are so neutral. I agree.
They're all vanilla, aren't they? Really?
Absolutely. I'm like you, Nigel. I mean, I was a Remainer, and I still am. However, I hugely respect the way you presented the Brexit case, and I think people bought into you because you gave an opinion and people knew what you stood for, and it's the same with Trump. And I think if politicians learn to just, speak up about what they actually believe, we would have a much better society than we do now.
Richard, thank you. Kind words. Thank you very much indeed. And somebody else there saying, wasn't too keen on McDonnell, but hey, he's beginning to deliver. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. The time is now 7:30, and as CIA boss goes to Pyongyang and shakes the hand of Kim Jong-un, brokering a meeting between Kim and President Trump within the next few weeks, I'm saying to you that I believe Trump has now become an international statesman. I'm asking whether you agree with me, but before we get back to that, I've got to go to LBC's political editor, Theo Usherwood, because things are happening in the House of Lords today. Theo, hello.
A big, heavy defeat for Theresa May in the House of Lords. Good evening,
Good evening.
Nigel. Yes, it was bad news for the government. Lord Adonis, Lord Kerr, who of course authored Article 50, put down an amendment to the EU withdrawal bill asking the government to explore options to remain within the customs union. That particular bit of detail is important because this wasn't about keeping Britain within the customs union, it was simply to explore options. And the Brexit department has been very keen to point that out. Having said that, the government lost really heavy defeat. 348 plays 2-2-5 on the amendment. 24 Conservative peers included within that number, people like Lord Lansley, the former Health Secretary, Lord Deben, the former Environment Secretary, a.k.a. John Gummer. And get this, you'll really like this fact, if ever you want, for those who have got suspicions that this is all about the establishment, every single one of the living cabinet secretaries voted for the amendments.
Yeah, surprise, surprise.
The former cabinet secretaries, they all voted for the amendments. So I'm sure that many of your listeners will feel, another stitch up. But of course, in itself, Nigel, this vote is not important. The trick is, or the key bit is, will it give power to the elbow, people like Anna Soubry, Dominic Grieve, Ken Clarke, who might be tempted to, when the bill comes back at the end of May, to actually uphold one of these amendments, and indeed when it goes to a later stage, committee stage, in the House of Lords, there could be something much more substantive about keeping Britain within the customs union.
And there are more votes to come tonight, I believe, Theo.
Yeah, more votes to come tonight, and that's the crucial thing. This is about sending a message from the House of Lords. The key bit is, do MPs, remain Tory MPs, pick up the baton, now feel they've been emboldened, link up with Sir Keir Starmer, Chukwuemeka, the SNP and the Liberal Democrats, and actually uphold one of these amendments, tying the hands of Theresa May and, in effect, signing Britain up to a really soft Brexit. That's why this vote's important. Does that actually materialise into something substantial?
I'm quite sure that Brexit voters will be viewing the House of Lords tonight, and the former cabinet secretaries and of course the former European commissioners with total and utter contempt. I want the whole thing abolished. How many defeats do you reckon they can get over the course of the next couple of days, the government?
It could run, we could be talking half a dozen or so. But the key thing is what happens when the bill comes back to the House of Commons. Do Conservative MPs say, well, look, actually, it's really important to give Theresa May an open hand. It's really important that when we're entering this final, if you like, furlong of the negotiations, setting up that trade deal, that we don't try and put the stoppers on Brexit. We acknowledge that we're coming out of the customs union and the single market as part of that deal. But of course, the risk from Leaver's point of view is actually they think this is a real opportunity. We've got the chance here to keep Britain within the customs union. There's something substantial comes down the tracks in terms of that. It's not just about exploring options. Actually, it means keeping Britain in the customs union. That happens, and then of course the whole concept of leaving the European Union lock, stock and barrel becomes obsolete.
Well, it's not what we voted for, Theo. Thank you very much indeed. That was Theo Usherwood reporting on the House of Lords, as ever, standing up for the European project. Now, of course, one of the big rows this week in the Commons and through the country has been the Windrush scandal. Clearly, some sort of extraordinary mess-up that's happened within the Home Office. And Jeremy Corbyn was firing off on this today during Prime Minister's questions. Let's listen to him.
Yesterday we learnt that in 2010 the Home Office destroyed landing cards for a generation of Commonwealth citizens, and so have told people we can't find you in our system. Did the Prime Minister, the then Home Secretary, sign off that decision?
Prime Minister.
No, the decision to destroy the landing cards was taken in 2009 under a Labour government.
Well, there you are. It was quite a good answer from the Prime Minister, wasn't it, really? But look, it almost doesn't really matter whether this happened in 2009 or 2010. The fact is, this decision wouldn't have been taken by a minister. It would have been taken by somebody in our civil service. It looks bad, and guess what? Guy Verhofstadt in the European Parliament picked up on it today in Strasbourg. This is what he said.
We need still to have the citizens' rights completed, because certainly after the Windrush scandal in Britain, we want to be sure that the same is not happening to our European citizens, and that there is no bureaucratic nightmare there. So we will organise, President, with the Home Office on the 24th of April, next week, a special session with the Home Office of 5 of the committees.
So you see, what will happen now is that the European Union will demand, continued scrutiny over how the UK deals with foreign nationals through the European Court of Justice. So we shot ourselves in the foot. Back to the Donald, back to Mike Pompeo going to Pyongyang, back to this big meeting, and to me saying to you, I think Trump's becoming an international statesman. Well, let's go to California. Let's go to Tina in Highland, California. Good afternoon, I guess it is there, isn't it?
It's still morning, Nigel. It'll be afternoon soon, but it's still
of course, it's still morning. And you're a new caller to the show, and you're very welcome, Tina. So tell me, how's the president doing?
I think he's doing fine. I think he's doing great. He's done everything so far that he said he was going to do. He's going to this talk and is not going behind everybody's back. And we all know what he's doing. Some people don't agree. I'm very skeptical about him in the first place, and this is a pro-Brexit, and now we're a pro-Trump household, so I think everything he's doing so far, we have to give him a chance. He's done a lot more than anybody else has in the past.
Now, Tina, I've slightly been teasing people tonight, because I've been saying, you know, that he's now an international statesman, and I've been a little bit provocative in using that word, but actually, surely we judge people not on their demeanour, not on their manner, we judge them on what they achieve. But you're in California, which was a big pro-Hillary state, you know, big majority of voters there went for her. Do you see any signs in California of attitudes softening towards Trump, or do they still feel he's just the wrong guy from New York?
Oh, no, they still feel he's the wrong guy. Everybody, I mean, our family got into a big heated argument over this, and we're still not talking. So it's they're not going to soften up to him at all. No,
I have to say, a couple of times I've been to California since he was elected, and you know, if you say quite loudly in a restaurant you're a Trump supporter, you know, you might be told the main course isn't coming. So it's pretty difficult. Tina, keep the faith, but don't tell everybody that you're pro-Brexit and pro-Trump, because I think it's even tougher in California actually than it is in London. And thank you very much for listening, taking part, and for calling. Lee in Aberystwyth says, Trump is employing the madman theory to have your opponent believe that you are so unstable and so unpredictable that they will give in to your demands. Nixon used it, and his foreign policy is seen as the most successful part of his ill-fated presidency. It's all in Trump's book, The Art of the Deal. He's a genius. Lee, I have to say, just once or twice in this presidency, I've watched him do things, and I thought, I wonder why he's doing that. And then he comes out smelling of roses. He is a lot cleverer than anyone gives him credit for. He is always playing a game of chess. He is always thinking 2 moves ahead. He's a hell of a lot smarter than most of those people in Washington, D.C. Philip is calling from Farnham. Good evening, Philip.
Good evening, Nigel. How are you?
I'm well. So is Trump a statesman?
No, he's not a statesman. I'm amazed that you're... I mean, I understand now that you're teasing us slightly.
I'm teasing you. Of course I'm teasing you.
Well, you know, in honesty, I genuinely agree with you. I agree with you on Brexit. I commend you for your efforts. I think it never would have happened without that sort of drive. And I hope it all resolves itself at some point in the near future. But on the Trump aspect, I lived in the States for 12 years. Part of the reason I returned was because he was looming on the horizon.
Really?
And if I may, well, yes, to be honest with you, because I felt he was only serving his own interest. It's just what I heard in 15 that he was in the race. But I don't think he'd received the nomination. I'm not great on the dates of politics. But a story I heard from several sources was that he only entered the race to be president, or announced he wanted to be president, to raise his public profile so he could negotiate a stronger deal with ABC or NBC for The Apprentice. And in fact, he didn't want to have office. He didn't want the job. And why would a billionaire who has access to everything want to be doing a very hard job on a very constant basis? You know,
well, because, Philip, he believes in the country, he believes in the American people, he thinks the political class in Washington, D.C. and the globalists have led them in the wrong direction, and that's why he took on Hillary. That's why he's so sceptical about the European Union project. I mean, look, you know, Philip, I know this guy, and he does actually believe in stuff in a big, big way.
Well, does he not believe in himself before all else? He seems to be very ego-oriented.
Do you know something? I've now been in elected politics for 19 years, and virtually every single leader I've met of a nation state is to some extent an egomaniac, including, one might argue, Emmanuel Macron, who I met yesterday. And I'm going to tell you, why Macron turned up 20 minutes late to the plenary yesterday. And Philip, listen in, because you'll find, actually, putting yourself first is not uncommon. But for now, you're listening to the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC, and it's 7:46. Donald Trump is achieving more in terms of international diplomacy than Obama managed in his 8 years. Obama got the Nobel Peace Prize. I think Trump should be heading in that direction too. Hey, some of you find that controversial. I've called him a statesman. All right, I'm teasing you a little bit. He doesn't behave in the way we would normally expect a statesman to behave because he's a brash New Yorker, but he is achieving things, and that, I think, is very significant. So yesterday, Emmanuel Macron was here speaking in the Parliament. You may have heard it if you're listening to the show last night, and I met him at lunchtime, and he was very civil and very nice. But the funny thing was, he was due to speak here at 10 o'clock yesterday morning, and by about 10:18, there were quite a few slow hand claps going around the European Parliament chamber. He appeared 20 minutes late. Why was that? Well, I found out this morning from somebody, a friend, who works in the Parliament services. Yes, even I've got the odd friend here, who told me that he arrived, and the reason he was 20 minutes late is he spent 20 minutes having his makeup put on. Yeah, that's right, 20 minutes having his makeup put on, and his personal makeup artist is costing the French state tens of thousands of euros every single year. And some of you think that Donald Trump is very narcissistic, very selfish, out for himself. Actually, I think to even want to become a national leader, a lot of it has got to be about you. And in the case of Macron, it's how he looks and how he appears. 20 minutes to have his makeup put on. It's quite something, isn't it? Even Blair would only have taken half that time. So, let's get back to Trump and whether he's a statesman or not, and whether he's a narcissist, and whether he's achieving anything. Craig says, Nigel, I wish Donald was our Prime Minister instead of the spineless May. Would the EU be treating us the same way? He's done so much in a short space of time. I mean, that's my view. And Tim in Suffolk says, Trump is doing a fantastic job. The US economy doing well, and now the potential to achieve peace on the Korean Peninsula. Amazing what can be achieved when a businessman is put in charge. And John says on text, so where's that wonderful wall he was going to build? I don't think that's very statesmanlike. John, he does need to do something about the southern border. The number of illegals coming into America has, by all accounts, dropped, but he did make a big promise. Hey, I stood next to him. We are going to build on our southern border a great, big, beautiful wall. He's going to have to deliver something on that. I agree with you. The problem, of course, is getting the budget agreed through Congress to do it. Let's go to Luke in Orpington. Luke, is Trump now a global statesman?
He's more than that. Perhaps that's the wrong word because it does have connotations, but let's face it, he's achieving more than even he expected. I think he's finding himself with more time to do more stuff, which is really great, and it's helping people. I mean, look, he brought in tax cuts, which is making lots of people lots of money, saving lots of money. He brought in the Supreme Court. He sorted that out, didn't he? Which obviously brought in lots of different laws, like pro-life and things. He rolled back some regulations. What else did he do? The travel ban, which was a temporary thing. I know that caused some things, but at least it said, look, borders are ours. Now we'll sort out who comes in, which is fair enough. That's what Brexit is too. Jerusalem, what a great move. That was obviously well overdue by a few thousand years. Withdrawal of the Paris climate deal. He pulled out that silly Trans-Pacific partnership.
You are a real Trumpite, aren't you, Luke?
Well, I mean, it's obvious. You've got to be in denial. Listen, I'm not saying he's the best person to perhaps go for a meal with. Maybe he's. I mean, you've met him yourself.
Well, Luke, I've been for a meal with him. He's great fun to go for a meal with. I mean,
I meant from a more, more in terms of perhaps he's a bit sort of out there and so on, But Obama was a better family man in terms of examples, for example. But look, this isn't a personality contest. This is who's a great leader, someone who stands by the convictions, like yourself. And at the end of the day, I think. We've got to. You've been denied, and of course, he's standing up to the globalists, which is a huge, massive thing, which a lot of people, are in denial about. And well said yourself, by the way, on Infowars. It's exactly right.
Well, there we are, Mark. Luke, tell me, what has he got wrong?
Okay, maybe he doesn't show enough respect to the opposite sex. Maybe he doesn't. His equality is a little bit. He's not perfect. He's got lots of issues, no doubt. But at the end of the day, when it comes to being a president, you need bullet points, and then you let the people below that deal with the finer print things. He's getting China, he's sorting them out, he's sorting North Korea. And, you know, to be honest, we do need his support, I would say, with Brexit. That would be the next great thing. If he could just stand up to the Europeans, to the globalists who think they can rule the roost, finally, you know,
do you know, Luke, I'd love to see him turn up in Brussels with Theresa May and give us a hand with Brexit. He put the fear of God into them. Luke, I thank you for your call, and Luke, they're a big pro-Trump supporter. Peter in Bury says, I think Trump has finally arrived on the world stage. He is the Churchill of the US, even though he might have a few trigger-happy nutters around him. You mean neocons, don't you? Caroline says, Trump can read people. He's excellent at it. Just watch some episodes of his show, Celebrity Apprentice. It's a natural skill that Trump has. Sean says on Facebook, Trump's tweets are childish. If you got something to say to someone, then meet them in person. Well, I tell you what, Sean, he is going to meet the North Korean leader in person. It is an amazing achievement, whatever comes of it. He's done a lot more than Obama ever did. Mark is calling from Lowestoft in Suffolk, a brand new caller to the show. Welcome, Mark.
Oh, thank you very much, Nigel. It's good to speak to you, and thank you for saving our sovereignty. I'm a Trump voter as well, but I'm one of them sad people who actually watched all 3 live head-to-head debates with Hillary, which we absolutely trounced them. The things that came out...
I was there, Mark.
It was here at some point. I thought, well, our media must pick up on this, and they completely ignored it, you know. And I think it was great the last few days. He called James Comey, the ex-head of the FBI, who he sacked, called him a liar and a slimeball. So exactly what the man is. I actually sat through all the live... Nigel, I sat through the whole debate where they actually grilled Comey in front of the Senate, and he lied to the Senate, because I had to jot it down, to be honest with you. On May the 3rd, in front of the Senate, he was asked, quote, did you leak, or have you ever been an anonymous source for any of the news reports? He replied, never. A month later, in front of another Senate committee, on June the 8th, he was asked the same question, and he said he did. He actually leaked a memo to...
Well, he was sacked for leaking, wasn't he? Yeah, I mean, he was sacked for leaking, that's clear. Although I personally, Mark, think...
But he actually perjured himself, so he should be indicted. He actually said he gave it to a good friend.
Well, you never know where that may go, ultimately. I mean, my view is Trump would have been better to live with Comey, even if he was leaking. I think sacking Comey was a huge mistake. I think sacking Comey has led to the Mueller inquiry. But the point, Mark, is that people aren't used to an American president using words like slimeball. They find that quite difficult to swallow.
In the case of Comey, it's true, because like I say, it is his friend, the professor, who then leaked it to the Washington Post, you know, which is all highly illegal.
It may be true, Mark, it may be true, but people find it. I don't. You don't. But people find it hard to take Trump seriously,
Nigel,
given some of the language that he uses.
Nigel, it's not maybe true, it's true. It's what he testified in front of Congress. He said he leaked it to his professor friend at the Columbia University, who then leaked it. So this is top secret material. This is illegal. And he leaks it to the Washington Post. That's where the leaks were coming from.
All right. Is Trump a statesman, Mark?
And if you really think back a month when this all falls, and what's been sad about it is he's been forced into to this Syria thing by the deep state. That's obvious. He's had both hands tied behind his back for well over a year with this Russia-Trump collusion rubbish, and the Pfizer memo will come out. Well, they didn't report about that.
All right, Mark, going to have to let you go. I'm going to take one last call very quickly. Time is running short. Adrian in Nottingham, is Trump a statesman, or is that taking it too far?
I think it is taking it too far. Is it really surprising to you that the president of the US can actually get a meeting with a little country? Surely that's a pretty easy thing to get him to die if you're the president of the US. But I think on other things, there are things which he claims and then he quietly backs away from, which are Obama achievements. So if you remember the Trans-Pacific Trading Partnership, he said this was complete rubbish and he'd get rid of it. All the other countries said, okay, Donald, we'll go without you. And guess what? He's creeping back in again now. His big tax reform, what he's really done, he's taken $1 trillion away. He's given $1 trillion to people like himself, when there are schools in Oklahoma that can only open 4 days a week, whose teachers have to work in Walmart. So he's just looking after rich people.
But there are lots of workers, Adrian, lots of workers who've had $1,000 bonuses, $2,000 bonuses. Adrian, thank you. We're out of time. Big debate, great debate. I know I teased you a little bit, but hey, he is getting things done. I'm back tomorrow night. I'll be back at 6 o'clock tomorrow night, covering the first hour for Ian Dale, and then on from 7 till 8. At 10 tonight, it's Ian Collins. But up next, It's Clive Bull.
Nigel, thank you.